This is America, and how much justice you're going to get depends on how society views the value of your voice.
There's no tolerance for this. We have to facilitate a healthy working environment for both men and women, but especially for women and women of color.
Faith without works is dead. We can pray about it, but we have to put work behind it.
Welcome to Essential Stories, an independent grassroots docuseries and live roundtable discussions that give voice to people on the front lines of our world's most pressing social issues.
There was this challenge going around on Instagram where you post a black and white photo of yourself and you put #challenge accepted. When I got it in the messages that people sent me, it was women supporting women. And so I was like, well, of course, I have to partake in this, it's important. And then the next day I found out that this originated in Turkey because a woman was killed by her boyfriend. By the time it reached the US, it kind of got diluted to just women supporting women. And I was actually sexually harassed in 2019 in December. And I was harassed by a white male coworker. This new coworker that was just a new hire, he sexually harassed me in an elevator that didn't have any cameras. So I had no proof. And so when I took this up to my manager, he was also a white male. So I'm giving you a visual. Basically, what I felt was going on was this white male manager that I trusted to handle the situation protected this white male coworker. And I was left feeling angry, confused, sad, embarrassed. And it's just, I never want to feel that way again. They opened up an HR investigation that was also led by a white male. So you can all imagine how the investigation went. They tried to paint the picture and the blame on me. I guess in a way, they tried to make it seem like I was asking for it or it's my fault. And as women, we know that what I wear, my makeup, my hair, that does not give you an invitation to ever touch me or ever harass me. All of us, I'm sure, have experiences of being sexually harassed or just even the smallest form of harassment, even if it isn't sexual. It's just part of the patriarchy. And I think that, of course, this is also related to race. I'm half Latina, half Asian. And, I understand why my white male manager would rather let me go or, have me be so upset that I quit. Through this investigation, I actually had enough evidence to sue this company that I was working for. I decided not to, and I think 2 months ago, our CEO stepped down, but he actually hired a female CEO, which I think is a wonderful message to the company. I think it's very important, and I actually sent her an email yesterday explaining everything that happened and how I think that it's very important that she be a woman and enforce this change of there's no tolerance for this. We have to facilitate a healthy working environment for both men and women, but especially for women and women of color.
Joy, I thank you. I appreciate you for being transparent and sharing your story, sharing your experience, and sharing your pain. Because there are a lot of people, not to minimize what you've experienced, but there are a lot of people who have experienced just that, but because they were made to feel as though it was their fault, there was a lot of victim blaming going on, they keep their story to themselves. So I appreciate you for sharing that on this platform. And to the second the second part of Kara's question, how do we move forward in transitioning feminism and Black Lives Matter to a place where it really is equal, where everyone is really has a level playing field? And I think you having the courage that you have, Joy, that is one of the first steps. We can break down the patriarchy by rising up as women, as marginalized people, and speaking our truth. I think that's what's most important. That's how we begin to break down the nuances of patriarchy, because if things keep getting swept under the rug, eventually we're going to have a mountain of dust. And then we're going to wonder why there's a big lump in the rug, because we've continued to sweep everything under the rug.
I really resonated with your story. I had a similar experience with my first job, my very first job. And I was hired at the same time as another associate, and he was not appropriate, not just to me, but to basically all the women in the place I worked. And there were multiple conversations that went down about it. We were trying to raise our voices about it. And our boss, the owner of the store, who was a white male, he took our complaints into consideration and kept the coworker until he started to cost him money, basically, because he was not a good employee. It was definitely a similar lesson for me in using my voice and how my voice could be received even if I use it. And I think the point that was made earlier about ceding space is really important, because people in power aren't used to ceding space. They're not used to giving the opportunity for other people to raise their voice. And so it's, as much as it shouldn't be, it is up to those who need to speak to raise their voice and be like, you don't have to explain for me. I can explain for you because I have a voice. This is my experience, my story, and it matters as much as yours. We're in the same place for the same thing. We're a little different from each other, but still just as worthy as each other. And so there's a lot of opening of spaces, I think, that needs to happen, and a lot more insistence that needs to happen, instead of smaller movements within movements just kind of dying once they haven't gotten support. People really need to keep to it. They need to keep going, keep having their message heard, keep talking about it and using their voice, because that's what creates change.
I want to also remember Chanel Miller, who was the woman who reclaimed her life and her story after being raped and nearly killed by Brock Turner, who faced up to 14 years in prison, but was only sentenced to 6 months in a county jail after raping her and leaving her behind a dumpster. And she reclaimed her story by telling her story. She no longer owned the fact that she had been drinking and that she wore a skirt and her previous sexual experiences. She just simply said that none of that gave him permission to rape me and nearly kill me. And I think it's vital that when we're changing the language and when we remove ourselves from the patriarchy, that we own our stories, that we own our movements, that we own them, for us to reimagine different language and to reimagine a way in which we include everybody. I think it's vital that we look at retelling the story, both of the history and the past, and imagining what the future looks like that isn't like it is currently.
Just from a lawyer's perspective, one of the biggest frustrations that I've had with the Me Too movement is that it hasn't had like a redistributive aspect. And what I mean by that is this, is that, Jay, if you came to me and you said that you wanted to sue, say you decided to sue, okay, we'd get a letter from the EEOC. The EEOC, 99%, I think, of the claims that they get, they don't investigate themselves. They just give you a letter that says you have the right to sue now. And then when they issue that letter, they also send it to your employer, showing that you filed a complaint. So the problem that I would have again and again with clients was not the evidence, but just the cost. I mean, I work for a firm where we would represent women for free. But the problem is that as a lawyer, yes, your fee can be waived, right? Like you can have a firm that pays you, and then you don't have to worry about your own fee from the case. But you still have to convince partners in the firm that this, number one, that this case is worth investing money in, because you're not going to get a sexual discrimination case, racial discrimination case anywhere without taking depositions of that boss. And every deposition costs like a couple of $1,000s, you know. And I'm talking about my clients working in places like the Amazon warehouse or a grocery store or places like that. And so, you know, it's very frustrating to me that the conversation doesn't involve the fact that women of color who are harassed and who are abused do not have the resources to pursue these cases. And so, you know, the advances that need to happen in case law for the legal system to understand what, you know, Black women or Hispanic women or Asian, like what they're going through in the workplace is not being created. Because at best you can get your complaint up to summary judgment, where you have to show up all your evidence, and like the white male judge, like 80% of the cases you lose on summary judgment. You know, so then of course you're under pressure to settle before summary judgment, you know, and get what you can for your client. But that's not justice at all in any way, shape, or form. That's like kind of like the scraps that they'll throw at you to make you go away. The fact is that women of color do not have the resources that white women do. And unless there's a redistributive aspect to understanding intersectionality and understanding justice and how the justice system works, I feel very stuck, you know, because it's all very well for Meryl Streep or whoever to go on about Me Too and getting the voices out. And getting the voices out is very important, but the voices also have to create a record. They can't just like go out into the ether. You know, this is America, and how much justice you're gonna get depends on how society views the value of your voice.
I think we're missing the main point here, though. The main point isn't whether we can defend ourselves in the system. The main point is the system is broken. Well, it's not broken. It's working just as it was designed. The system is the problem. It's not just that we don't have the resources. It's that we shouldn't have to be fighting these fights. So I feel like when we put our attention on things like we don't have the resources to fight these fights, which is really important. And Rafia, I applaud what you're doing, because someone needs to speak for these women who don't feel like they have a voice. We, as a healthy functioning society, wouldn't have these problems in the first place. We are not a healthy functioning society. We function, but not in a healthy way. So I think that we can get very distracted and put our attention on trying to make the justice system more fair. That's not ultimately, I don't believe, going to solve the issue.
If you're looking for solutions within a capitalist system, then, you know, the only way this kind of thing that happened to you goes away is if we impose huge costs on men every time they so much as like, you know, get an inch out of line. And the reason I feel like that is just that the system has been weighed so much in their favor that unless we kind of have this pendulum swing, but at the same time, like, I get your point, and I have trouble, you know, balancing between the transformational rhetoric of developing a new system, you know, that is not so tainted, and then sort of like the slightly dejected premise that, oh, well, you know, this is the system we have, and so these are my clients now, and I have to give out some solution or some redress that functions within it. So I'm so with you. I'm so with you on that. Yeah, I mean, I don't have an answer.
That's a good way to transition to the what do we do. We talk about it. Another biblical reference, faith without works is dead. We can pray about it, but we have to put work behind it. And the work is being advocates, is being activists, bringing awareness to the issues that further create this foundation of patriarchy.